Hi Scrap Time viewers, I'm James Burke from James Burke Creative, and we're going to do a little demo today with my newest stamp set, which is a part 2, version 2 to the Face Base and Decora stamp sets I released in 2017. So, I'm going to grab this stamp set here. I'm going to be stamping in some distress ink. I'm on some textured cardstock, so it's not going to give me the most clear impression, but that's okay because I'm building a blueprint for what I want to end up illustrating. And the best part about these, this is just my sample, is that these are really simple shapes, and I call them Decora as kind of a spin on a Japanese fashion trend called Decora, which is short for decoration, where you would just kind of decorate your whole face and body with trinkets. But I like to build almost a blueprint, a guide to work off of on my stamps, and then come back in with all my mixed media arts and crafts and illustrate over the top of it. I'm doing a shocking job demoing that stamp. But like I said, the clarity of the image isn't going to so much matter, and how dark this is, so I know it might be hard to pick up on the screen, but I just want to build all the elements that I like into the piece so that I can illustrate on top of it. And the reason I like to do this is some people don't like to start and draw out all the guides and the maps for a full face. Some people also don't like to consider themselves drawers. Now, I think drawing is a skill and anyone can learn it, but some people do want to skip a couple of steps, and I'm all here for it. So these are a really fun thing to use to flex your imagination and actually get something really interesting out of it. I don't want to say whimsical, because I think when you start to collage them together, they can be more interesting than anything. There's definitely some samples I feel like I had to throw away. But for the most part, I like these because I can do something super interesting that I couldn't actually formulate in my head. Like if you just told me, draw some really interesting sunglasses, you know, on a face, I'd go pretty generic. I'm not, you know, I don't have enough recall to put together something super fantastical. But when I'm doing it with stamps, I feel like I'm more collaging, which gets your brain in that abstract kind of place. It's almost puzzle play, and you're piecing things together, kind of looking where something might go. You might put it in an interesting place, realize you don't like it. The best thing about stamps, you can throw it all away and start again. Or you can just stamp over the top of it. Like if you're using a light ink, it really doesn't matter. So I usually like to pair these stamping tutorials with videos on my own YouTube to show you how to add certain extra features. We're going to keep it pretty simple today and just add a neck on, a little bust. And then I'm going to go in with my pen and literally trace over everything that I've just done. Start sculpting it in. If you've noticed that a stamp doesn't quite meet where I want it to meet, I'm just going to pull that line in. A brush pen for this, like one of these Zebra super fine brush pens, is really great, because depending on how much pressure you put on it, you'll get a really varied line width, and you'll start to get something really illustrated. It'll look super interesting without you actually having to do anything at all. I just love it. I feel like you get all the glory of having something really fascinating to look at without much effort at all. I'm just cheating my illustrations here. But depending on what mediums you like to use, you can obviously vary up the effects of the piece. And I think this really kind of speaks to people that do want to practice illustration, that maybe do find they've got a yearning for it, but really don't know where to start, or just want a bit of guidance, a bit of help. I didn't want to so much move around the facial features on the stamps. I more wanted to flex the imagination to create different total looks, different total pieces. And we have some samples off to the side that we'll show you in a second on rendering. So, you know, even though you've got this style that I'm doing here, a very loose, very illustrated brush pen kind of effect, you can use graphite, you can use watercolor, you can color the negative space, which is what I like to do with these really graphic black and white brush pen ones. And you can just see I'm picking up all the little areas that I stamped out, but some of the lines I don't really want. Some of them I can disappear into the background. If there's something I really want to reshape, like maybe I don't like the eye, or maybe these lips, I kind of want to give her a bit of a smile, because I keep them kind of expressionless in the base. I'm just going to add these two little corners on to give her a bit of a smile. I might want to flatten out the top Cupid's bow a bit. I might want to widen this nostril a bit. It's really going to come down to personal preference, and I think when you've got the base down, when you've got a guideline or a blueprint, you feel so much more free to play with it and not stress about what you think you can draw and what you think you can't draw. At this point, the whole thing is down for you and you're just tracing. But you're tracing something that will look completely different depending on what you like to do, what your aesthetic is. You might not like to put a lot of stuff on there, or you might have a completely different stamp set with some generic shapes. You might have done a huge headpiece, you might have stamped out a whole dress, you might have stamped out some cute sunglasses. I think it really is kind of up to you where you decide to take it. But I just want to give people a bit of an exercise to stimulate their imagination rather than force people to practice drawing, because I know it can be daunting, especially if you're just starting out. And you know, especially as someone that is, you know, has a background in fashion illustration and is kind of, you know, spent my whole life drawing, I don't use stamps for card making and I don't use stamps for scrapbooking, but I love stamps. I like stamping, I like playing with them. So to try and take them into this mixed media space where I can use them in my journaling and you might not necessarily know that I had stamped out a piece, I think that's really exciting for me. I really enjoy it. I've got a little travel tin of watercolor here. I'm not going to do anything crazy, but I do just want to show that, like, if I had this really sketchy loose look, I might not be so crazy with that. And I might just put a really loose watercolor background in the negative space, maybe even try and feather it off a little bit. Again, this is so loose and organic looking with all the tracing. Your eye's going to fall on the whole piece before it starts dissecting what's going on the page. I might just want to ground this into my piece. If this were my journal, this would be a cute little background effect. Might get a different stamp and stamp on some texture, perhaps a stencil even. But I'm going to leave the illustration as it is. I'm actually not going to put any color on it. I'm just going to color the negative space. One of the most simple and effective ways to quote-unquote finish a piece without having to do the absolute ultramost plus, which is what I'm here for, especially when you've got enough time to demo it. You know what, I lied. I'm going to put something on it. I'm going to put some of these gorgeous handmade watercolors just on here because I want to show you how they shine. I'm a sucker for anything that shines or glitters. I can't not demo for you and put some glitter in it. And you know, if you got to this point and you thought, well, I still want to put some more stuff in it, I still want to make it a little more sketchy, I still want to give it more of an interesting look, there's no reason you couldn't grab a fine liner brush pen or something. I'm just exposing all of my mess over here. But there's no reason you couldn't go in and start adding fine details. I've got an example over there where I kind of spent, you know, over an hour just adding on really fine details to the piece. And things like this, especially with the varied line width from your brush pen, is going to make such an interesting effect, literally without having to do anything at all. I might even start putting in some of the lines of the facial features. This is a dark navy. It's not quite as harsh as the black. I might even put some shadowing in with some cross-hatching. And I think once your brain's open to this idea of collaging and mixing and matching, you feel a bit more free to just do whatever you feel like doing. You can just, you know, I might add a little choker on because I love to do that, but I can start experimenting with anything and everything. I might want to put freckles all over her because I just like the texture of it, or I might want to put some little star freckles on her because that's maybe just a little bit more whimsical. I think it's really exercising your imagination that's going to unlock all of that potential that you perhaps think you don't have access to because maybe you haven't practiced drawing enough, or maybe you haven't done enough practice pieces to get there. I think you just throw it out the window. Start with a good base. Just loosen yourself up. I'll sign it for you and you guys can take that one.
Thanks.
There you go. Really quick piece. We've got some sample pieces here made with the exact same set. I'll show you what the whole thing looks like. I'm not sure if the glare will be crazy. This is not how the set comes, I don't think. We actually haven't put it together in a packet yet. This was just for the show. We've got this face that we stamped out, which has a hairline, eyebrows, eyelids, and most of the features of the lips and nose. This one's a lot more simple. This is missing some of that the eye details, the top of the nose, most of the lip features, even some of the ears. This is a lot more simple for people that either want to do a lot on the face or want to practice their drawing on this. We've got a little one here, a little face bust, who is kind of a topper to some of the other stuff you can do. So this whole dress was made with this cherry blossom petal shape, just repeat stamped over and over and over again. Really, really simple and effective. Even the top here, you can see there's a tiny little leaf in her, the corner of her wing. Just ultra for no reason, but there's the little leaf. I wanted a mix of big and small items to kind of decorate with. Our original set for Decora was this one here, and we had a double line kind of a feature going on. They were perfectly suited to our unbothered stamp set, just a bunch of unbothered ladies. But this is the original stamp set that we did kind of revamp these two here. Size them up a little bit for mixed media artists, people that wanted to work on loose kind of 5x7, 6x9s, even journals, a little bit bigger, like some of the display behind me. They kind of scale up pretty well for your journaling. But that's what we're encouraging, just people to get a little bit more hands-on and mixed media with your stuff. These are some of the samples. We've made a nice little headpiece here. We've got some earrings. Depending on how you even put your features in there, I mean, you can turn the feather into a completely obscure shape. This cherry blossom petal, if you cut off the side of it, it almost starts to become a tulip bud. So I like that they're simple enough, but they're varied enough from each other that you can really build something interesting. Here's where I've gone in with that pen that I was just demoing with and added in a ton of extra little detail. For me, that's some mindless stuff that I love to kind of tune out and do. And it's just such a beautiful effect, especially on this loose, organic looking watercolor effect, to have something so precise and so, you know, that dynamic shift in loose and then really detailed in structure. I think that black and white, what do we call it in performing? The shade and light?
Oh, the dark and light?
The dark and light. I think that's a really interesting look to play with when you're creating. But this is not about tips, this is about the stamps. So hope you enjoyed that little tutorial, and thank you so much for being here at the booth. We're James Burke Creative, and I will see you online. Bye.